All righty, everybody. I'm really excited today to have with me Ryan Neuwirt, who is passionate about bringing movement to the people. He's got a couple of different projects going on, so I'm going to let him introduce those to you. But I just wanted to say in terms of making movement and exercise, they're not the same thing, but making those approachable and fun is something that he's passionate about, and I'm passionate about fun, so that's why I thought this would really resonate with what we're talking about. So, Ryan, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So, one of the first things that I feel like a lot of people kind of get stuck in inertia. Some people are very active and they've got that momentum. They get that runner's high. They see the benefit of exercise and it's easy for them. And other people who just haven't been introduced to activity or haven't found one that they like, it's really hard to get it going. So in your experience, what do you have to share with people who might feel like exercise might not be for them, or they don't feel like they get benefit, so they have trouble sticking it out to find something they enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. So it can definitely be a tough thing to start, I think, because what we have learned to think of as movement, as exercise is really boring, honestly. Like going to the gym, like repping out like, 3 sets of 8, whatever on the bench or squat or whatever it's not inherently meaningful in a lot of ways. And I think that is where there's a lot of like the disconnect that happens between people that already exercise and they have found meaning in exercise, and people that are wanting to start exercising. They say, oh well, just start coming to the gym and we'll give this a shot. And then inevitably, like, people try it, they hate it, they decide exercise isn't for them. Then they just like go back home and they sit on the couch and they pick up the ice cream, and then it's back at square one again. I feel you. So I definitely, for somebody that wants to kind of get started, I would recommend just like thinking about things that you've enjoyed in the past that have made you feel good. Because we want to find something that has some meaning for you. So we want to find something that's probably fun. Exercise does not necessarily have to be going to the gym, getting in the weights. It's just one type of exercise. But think less in terms of exercise and more in terms of movement to begin with, where we're not just thinking about, oh, like if I exercise, like we have this tendency to think about, oh, is it enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing? But if we think about just simply moving, like we're going to be burning more energy. We're going to be making more progress than we would have originally. But moving can be just going for a walk. Moving can be rolling around on the ground. Moving can be just getting on a bike and going for a bike ride. And if we start there, just thinking about movement before we think about changing the diet too much or anything like that, if we think about movement, everything kind of gets a little bit easier to swallow, and we can just say, all right, cool, I can commit to going for a walk in the morning. That seems easy enough. And that way, like, we're not getting caught in the is it enough debate. If you're doing more, you're doing better than you were before, and that's all we can ask from day to day. Like, we just want to be doing a little bit better. So yeah, like I can definitely empathize with those who find it difficult to get going, but you have to kind of search for your own meaning in movement.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm a big advocate for celebrating the little wins. So
Yeah.
if you go a little bit further, or if you go the same route but a little bit faster than you did yesterday, then go your team, right? You've leveled
Absolutely.
a notch. It's not
Yeah.
about, getting ready to run a marathon or a half marathon, which I think
Yeah.
keeps a lot of people overwhelmed, and then they're just kind of counting themselves out before they even get the opportunity.
And like when we set those kinds of goals, a lot of the time, people will be like, oh, I'm gonna use a half marathon or a 5K to start getting in shape. Like, no, you need to do things before that, because like if you go to the finish line of a 5K, like, running form just absolutely gets annihilated. Like, you see people practically limping across the finish line. And like, awesome, you started, that's cool. But I just don't want to see people damaging their bodies to try and start by like, oh, I'm going to run 6, 7, 8 miles to start my fitness journey. Like that's not productive. But above all, consistency is key. And like this is something that we know, but it's not so important as like what you're doing or how much you're doing per se. But whatever you do consistently is what's going to wind up forming the whole, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I agree, you know, that finish line is the perfect picture of people who reach their goal, but their form is off, they're hurting themselves, they're
Yeah,
not going to be able to maintain their training the next week. And you and I know, well, I mean, because I know you're a body worker like I am, but as an active person too, like as you train your body, it's really hard to untrain or retrain ourselves when we pick up habits.
absolutely.
So then that's another challenge that you've just handed yourself.
Yeah, and like a really common path for people is like they used to be into sports or they used to be really active and they were in really, really good shape. Suddenly they look at themselves a few years later and they're like, oh man, what the hell happened? Like where did this go? And then they go and try to pick up right where they left off. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go for a quick run. Like I'm gonna do like 5 miles, whatever. Because I used to run 15. But we have to kind of have that patience with ourselves where like, especially when we're kind of in the midst of that identity crisis where we're now coming to the realization like, oh, I'm not an active person anymore. I can still be an active person, but I have to make that lifestyle change again. Yeah.
And you mentioned before, and this is one of the things that I'm really excited about, this whole idea, and I hope it just like takes the world by storm, is that rolling around on the floor is movement. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Just starting with really rudimentary, simple things.
In my opinion, like we want to build our health and our fitness from the ground up, literally. So the better we're able to move on the ground, the more familiar we get with the ground, generally the better everything else gets. There's a lot of theories around people being tight and stiff and in pain because their body doesn't feel safe standing up, dealing with gravity. And that's kind of like, I guess, one of the more holistic theories. But if we familiarize ourselves with the ground, just like when we were babies, working around on the ground is what stabilizes our bodies, what gives us the strength to deal with gravity and to move around. A lot of the time, as soon as we start playing around on the ground, you'll notice a lot of that general tightness and pain and aches just start to disappear. So I personally love literally rolling, so like rotating your body around on the ground, because rotation is one of the first movements that we learn as babies, but it's also one of the first movements that we tend to lose as adults, and that loss of rotation tends to contribute to a lot of pain and injury and all that, and inefficiencies when it comes to your gait. But basically, if you just start by playing around on the ground, if you're fortunate enough to have a baby around you, try to mirror their movements and see what happens there. But I promise you're going to get a good workout if you follow them around for a day. But yeah, rolling around on the ground is amazing, an amazing place to start. Definitely check out Original Strength. I know you and I have talked about that, but they have basically the guy that created it designed it around what he saw his kid doing as his kid developed. And he just started following his baby around doing the same movements, and he noticed that he felt better when he did that. So he's like, hey, we got something here. Yeah, so it's a great place to start.
And so their website is at originalstrength.com.
.com, yeah. Yep.
Perfect. And they have a lot of videos. Is that right?
Tons, yeah, tons of videos. Yep.
Choose and just start off super simple. But it's really simple concepts like rolling around on the floor or crawling, just rocking back and forth. I
Yeah.
have on one afternoon, there's one exercise that puts together a lot of different movements, but it's rolling and rotating across your hips and going across your knees and even stretching up onto your arms. So you're strengthening your shoulders, and you just sneak all this in and it builds on itself. And when we were talking the other day, you were saying how much of a little workout you find yourself doing really small, doesn't seem challenging when you start.
Yeah.
It seems very approachable and fun. You're playing on the
Yeah, absolutely. It's this crazy compound effect of like everything you do on the ground, where you might get up the next morning and just be like, what did I do? like, this is fantastic. But that rolling around on the ground, those basic fundamental developmental movements are what originally gave our body the ability to move, to deal with gravity. Like as far as like developmental phases go, like the first thing we do obviously is breathe. So there's a ton of emphasis I put personally on breathing for my clients. Like a body work session generally will include some very intentional breathing where, you know, I'm asking you to breathe through your belly or breathe through your chest. And that's a great way of just dealing with stress, serves as a little reset. And then we learn to move our eyes and our head, and then we learn to roll over and rotate. That rolling and rotation is giving our spine that fundamental range of motion, whereas as after we learn to roll over, we start to rock forwards and backwards, kind of like on your hands and knees, and that's, you know, setting the curves of your spine and teaching your spine or putting your spine in this shape where it can actually support weight over your center of gravity. Crawling is teaching your body to stabilize the rotation that you got when you were rolling. And then from crawling, general progression is towards walking after that, and then you have to challenge that stability. Like it's not so cut and dry, but as far as like the general roles of each phase, like that would be it.
Yeah, and from my experience in working with people, the most common pain points are knees, low back, shoulders. And
Absolutely.
those are key to rolling, to crawling, strengthening and moving all of those joints and
Yeah,
motion, right?
absolutely. Yeah, and one of my big frustrations with a lot of it's the medical industry, I think. But we just chalk those pains up to age. And like we have to ask that greater question of why. Like, why am I in pain? And when the answer to that question is age, we have no control over our age. So we're now giving that power away to some circumstance that is just going to happen to us. We're allowing that pain to happen to us rather than trying to do something to affect how much pain we're experiencing. But yeah, you can say, all right, as we get older, we tend to see pain. That's a correlation, not a causation. There are plenty of people that are old that do not have pain, right? There are plenty of people with joint damage that do not have pain. A huge majority of professional baseball players have rotator cuff damage, but they don't have pain. So we want to start looking at what is actually causing your pain and not just accepting it, right? So that's the biggest thing is like you cannot just say, well, I have pain now and I need to be on a daily aspirin regimen to, you know, for the rest of my life. Like, newsflash, it's terrible for your liver. So, you know, so look a little bit deeper. Generally, knee pain is happening because your knees feel overloaded. Okay, why are your knees overloaded? It's probably because your hips aren't taking some of that load. Why is my shoulder overloaded? Okay, probably because the muscles, like the local muscles around the shoulder, are overloaded, whereas the larger muscles, like the lats, are not taking the load that they should. Is it elbow pain? Okay, probably a movement pattern where you're pulling or pushing and you're using, you know, again, you're not recruiting the bigger muscles around your shoulder to stabilize. Or lower back pain, you know, across the board, the more we move, the better lower back pain gets. You know, the more we sit, the worse it gets. But just ask that greater question of like, why am I in pain? And there is always going to be an answer, right?
Right. And being old is not enough.
Being old is not the answer that you need to stop at. Like if your doctor tells you, when you ask your doctor, why do I have pain? And he says, you're getting old, you need to find a new doctor.
Exactly. Somebody's going to take more than 7 minutes to get to the.
Exactly. Or like find a good physical therapist, whatever. Just look other places. Remember, a medical doctor is a doctor of medicine. He's going to solve the problems that they know. He's going to solve problems with medicine. Physical therapist is a doctor of physical therapy. They're going to try to solve it with mechanics and movement. But there are professionals that we should go to for, or different professionals we should be going to for different issues.
Yes. And hopefully our system will keep moving in the direction of letting us have more options and alternatives.
Absolutely.
Have what really works.
It's the goal. It's the dream. Yeah.
Awesome. So in your work with clients and personal training clients, I mean, I feel like perhaps that original strength protocol or mindset is a big part of it, but do you have any more tricks or recommendations for making activity approachable and safe as people are starting out if they've been in inertia for a while?
Yeah, absolutely. So start small. That's the big one. Change is hard. Like I'm not trying to tell you, rah rah, go exercise 5 days a week. You can do it. How long is that motivation going to last? Like a couple weeks? Cool. Now we're back where we started, and we're burnt out on exercise, and we hate it more now. So start small with a walk. Just remember, like if we look at like we have this habit of saying, no, it's easy. Like we can do it. It's super easy. And then if we keep telling ourselves that it's easy and we fail again, now we've failed at something easy over and over again. And our self-esteem continues to drop because, well, man, it's easy. I should be able to do this. I guess I'm not worth it. Change is hard, especially something that's not particularly natural, like using energy when we're generally our natural response is like we want to conserve energy. But like the more we use energy, the more energy we'll create for ourselves. But anyway, that's another discussion.
But it
Um,
is, that's the magic when you get to that sweet spot and you find it.
Completely. But pick something small and be consistent at it. So walk around the block. Like if you're starting from square one and you can go for a walk, do it every day. It takes, if I'm talking like logically here, it takes about 4 times a week for about 6 weeks to build a new habit. So aim for that, see what happens. But I promise you, like just make that deal with yourself. Like if you say, all right, I'm just going to take this walk. I'm going to see what happens. Make a game out of it. Like for 30 days, I'm going to walk 4 days a week, or I'm going to walk every day, whatever. Make a game out of it and just say like, you know what? I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to see how good I feel after that 30 days, right? And just watch. Don't change anything. Just walk and just try that out.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's really key to successfully bringing in new habits is to
absolutely.
make it doable. And like you were saying, like we're so wired to be hard on ourselves. Whatever criticism we carry around that's, rolling around in the back, as soon as we don't meet a goal we set for ourselves, we're the first ones to come down hard and say,
Absolutely.
there you go again. So how are you going to change it now?
Yeah.
That's something we're going to take a look at through the course of this week. Is I call it the inner gremlin. And a lot of times our response to that is to try to hit the mute button and say, block it out, but that doesn't turn it off. We can really change our approach and our conversation with it and say, why? Where does that come from? Are we modeling that from someone else that's been an influence? And are you guarding against something? Are you trying to protect me against failing or protect me against, thinking too much? Like you can have a conversation there and start to make a pivot. And I think changing your approach and your perspective is fundamental to
Absolutely.
greater and greater change. It just opens the gates. I mean, it doesn't,
Absolutely.
I wanted to say the floodgates, but you can't expect like immediate results. But once you start bringing that change in, you have such a big redirect
Yeah.
to a destination.
Yeah. And like the reason I say walking too is because, cardio, walking, something that gets your breathing elevated and your heart rate up for a decent amount of time, is because cardio literally it bathes your brain in hormones that make it feel good. Serotonin, dopamine, all these things that, we want more of. That movement, that breathing, that raising your heart rate, it literally is changing your brain chemistry. So I recommend starting there. Like we tend to bite off much more than we can chew, where we want to change our entire lifestyle in one sitting. Because where if you think about it, like we're like, all right, food and exercise, cool. I know I have to change my food and I know I have to exercise, awesome. But if you think about it, that's a huge bulk of our entire lifestyle, what we eat and what we do. Like what else is there? Like we sleep,
Right.
we go to work, which is still what we do. So it's kind of like having a job that you don't particularly care for, and then seeing this shiny object. Let's just say this shiny object is exercise and a healthy life. We're just like, well, I'm going to quit this job and I'm going to go do this other job. And then inevitably we get to that other job and realize, man, this is harder than I thought. but now you've kind of gone all in, and then you get burnt out, and then inevitably it just like doesn't work out. But so, start small, just like you were building a passion project. Start small with it, and don't start with movement, sleep more, drink water, and go on a walk. If you do those 3 things, I promise things will improve.
Yes. Yeah. And reward yourself for all those little wins, right? At the end of the first week, like don't wait for week 4 of success, but at the end of the first week, like how are you going to celebrate that?
Absolutely.
What win? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been big on the reward. For me has always been how I feel, but I'm not above eating a bunch of ice cream at the end of a week of exercising, and just life in general, or
There's some great,
several
right?
times during the week maybe.
You can work out with whatever kind of parameters you're trying to put on your diet. There's some fabulous sorbets out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So you can still feel like you're treating yourself, whatever it is that's going to hit those reward buttons until the walk itself is hitting the reward button.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. But like fit activity generally is easier if we give like the body a condition that makes it want to move. Like, do you have something meaningful, whether it's playing with your kids or going outside playing soccer, like something that you enjoy? What's your environment like socially and physically? Like a lot of our issues with health live in the modern environment than they do in the person themselves. So is your environment and your social environment more conducive to being sedentary, or is it conducive to being healthy? Like, who do you surround yourself with? And if the people that you surround yourself with aren't healthy, I'm not asking you to ditch your unhealthy friends, but get in on it together. I know it sounds ideal. It's very idealistic to think that all of your friends are going to join you, but just like say, hey guys, like I'm really committing to this, like go on a walk. But yeah.
Right. Instead of meeting up for happy hour, which right now is off the table anyway, meet up
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
walk at a nice big place where you can take up all the space you need to. And
Absolutely.
accountability is huge. That's one of the things that I really advocate is like tell somebody what you're up to, tell them your goal, or make a plan. We're going to do something 3 or 4 times a week. We're both going to do it, whatever that is you choose for yourself, so you can cheer each other on. So you have to report back. Yeah, I didn't make it this week. So next week, this is my game plan. This is how I'm going to make it stick.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not easy. Like, yeah, it takes some discipline in the beginning, but eventually that step up that you took becomes your new normal. And that 4 to 6 weeks that it's taking to create that new habit, to have your body adapt and your energy systems adapt, is basically just creating a new normal. And eventually that walk is going to seem like nothing. And then you're going to be like, man, I'm down 10 pounds. And I just started walking, sleeping more, and drinking water. What happened?
You started tuning into your body is all.
Yeah, right?
That's all.
Cool.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. And I know you're up to some new projects too in this kind of downtime without seeing clients in person. You're working on a new program to support manual therapists. So that is something that we get to look forward to. So I'm definitely going to link all of your information in the description here so people can follow you. I know you're on Instagram and putting good content out, making videos on how you work with the original strength in your own health practice. So that's awesome. Thanks for
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
planting seeds.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. My pleasure. Glad to collaborate with you and looking forward to see what's coming down the line. So I know the creativity is only picking up speed.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate it.